because you used to interview Peter Pry. That was after we interviewed him, and I was producing his radio show and his TV show. And then you picked him up, which is really becoming quite common, Logan. We did the truckers thing, right? And the Shannon with the American Truckers said, Brandon, you're the first national outlet to pick us up and carry this. He said it on the air for those who doubt. We're not bragging. We're just simply telling you, folks, we are out here trying to follow the trends and keep you abreast on the cutting edge. And that means we work 7 days a week. We put in super long hours, and I'm not complaining, and I'm not a victim. I love my work. I'm just telling you, we work really hard. We love our work. We take it seriously. We want to be the best we can be at it. This is not something we just phone it in. This is not rip and read off a teletype. I know a lot of you have no idea what a teletype is, but if you do, you're an older person like me or a middle-aged person like me. We work very hard at this, and Logan's playing with one of his new cameras. Is that one of the new cameras? Yeah, can you pull it off? We don't need to go quite that close up to the old man's face. They're going to see every blemish I got. Yes. So I got to go to that too. Tom Littleton as well. So anywho, I think Mark Levin knows they have the bomb, because if he interviewed Peter Pry like we did, and we produced his radio show, TV show, then surely Peter and him had some conversations off the air, if not on the air. And Peter Pry believed that Iran had the bomb a long time ago. So the question isn't, Mark Levin, hey, let's go to war so we can stop Iran from getting the bomb, as you're saying, which I don't think you have any sons that are draft age, do you, Mark Levin? I love it how all these guys are wanting to go to war. Let's go to war. How many young men are in your family that are eligible for the draft, Mark? And isn't it interesting, all these guys who want to do this, Sean Hannity, Mark Levin, they all work for faux news, which I think is a mouthpiece of the CIA. Isn't that interesting? Maybe that's what it takes to get on Fox News, is to be a mouthpiece for the government's corporate military-industrial complex war machine. So Mark Levin is, I see, in Israel, and he wants us to strike Iran before they get the weapon. Well, hello, they got it. The question is how many? So now what's going to be your excuse once you realize this, Mark, or you already do know this and you're not being honest? What is going to be your reason now for going to war? Really frustrating, is it not? All right, we're going to go to Colonel Rob Maness, but first we got to get to Tom Littleton. Tom joins us for a quick hit on a brand new article over at 30 Pieces of Silver. All right, let's go to Colonel Maness first then. All right, let's go to Colonel Rob Maness. Go to him first. On the first 100 days of the Trump administration, they had a cabinet meeting today. Logan said, see, now we got press passes for all next week. Logan said, Dad, you do realize if we were there right now, we'd be in that room filming. We could be in there filming. And I said, I think so. That's the whole purpose. You get a media press pass for the week, right? So he's like, what do you think is going to be going on when we're there? I'm like, I have no idea. So this should be very interesting. But I do know that in addition to some White House coverage we're going to be also hitting some very interesting historical sites and producing some short form and longer form documentaries on historical things that all of you will get to see and enjoy. So I'm not telling you a lot because I don't want anyone messing with us while we're out there. So I'm not telling every location we're going. But you guys are going to come back and go, that a boy, Brandon. That a boy. Good job. Good job. You're going to be happy, and you're going to get, I actually now, I don't know, maybe it's my age. I'm not a big sports guy. I'm more of a adventurer museum guy. Yeah. I called up one of my relatives today and I said, do you realize you have a museum 10 minutes from your house? One of the coolest museums in the country, 10 minutes from your house. And I was just up there in Northern Illinois and I could have gone. A bunch of artifacts of Abraham Lincoln, the chair, his favorite White House chair, that he literally got up out of that chair and went to Ford's Theater. It's there, along with other things. Several other cool historical things at this museum, not too far from Rockford, Illinois. And I said to my sister-in-law, do you not know you have one of the coolest museums 10 minutes from your house? She said, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. You know what? There are so many hidden treasures in this country, historical sites and hidden treasures. So we are going to be hitting some of these hidden historical sites and treasures along our trip between Memphis and Washington, D.C. And I'm not telling you where we're stopping along the way because I don't want trouble, people. But I don't need Antifa and Hamas showing up, if you know what I mean. But we are going to bring you back some great stuff that's very historical, encouraging, cool, patriotic. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right, we're going to go and get an update from our friend Colonel Rob Maness on the first 100 days. And Colonel, welcome back to the broadcast. I almost wish we were there this week. That would have been fun to be in there. Maybe they'll do a roundtable next week, but I kind of doubt it. I think we missed our opportunity on that one. But man, if we had been there, we have the passes to go in.
Well, the great thing about President Trump is he always gives you a target of opportunity if you're a media that's wandering around the White House.
But I said to Logan, I said, this is a new day and a new age, right? I mean, what administration has ever opened it up for outlets like ours to get White House press passes, or all the other folks that are there doing it right now, today, as we speak? That just hasn't happened. And it's just amazing, to be honest. And you saw Caroline Leavitt holding a special White House briefing for alternative media the other day. It looked like only about 8 people in the room. It looked like it was a chosen invitation for alternative media, giving them some special attention.
Yeah, I hope she makes that briefing a regular part of the process and institutionalizes it, because it's hard for, as you can see, it's hard once something is institutionalized, even for opposition administrations, to do away with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what do you make of the first 100 days, Colonel?
It's the greatest thing I've ever seen. And Ronald Reagan was the first president I ever voted for when I was 18 years old. And President Trump's second term is just, it's incredible. It's incredible. Just going around the room and listening to the high points of each cabinet secretary and what they've accomplished in the first 100 days. And every one of them gave absolute credit to the president and his policy. And his approach to those policies and use of executive orders, and look forward to getting some of this stuff passed through Congress, a lot of it, so that it is codified and it can't be eliminated by future presidents.
Mm. Well, let's talk about Pakistan and India. Now, I know Pakistan has nuclear weapons. Does India also have nuclear weapons?
Oh, yes, they do. So you have 2 nuclear powers, border states, obviously, that were created. The 2 states were created out of war in that area anyway, and they're on opposite sides of the fence on almost everything ideologically, religiously, and they've been fighting over this area along their borderline for decades now. And with the huge terrorist attack that killed a lot of people in India last week when J.D. Vance was there, and the response of the Indian government to that, and then Pakistan responding again, and those kind of activities, things could heat up very rapidly with them. Now, since Pakistan has acquired nuclear weapons, they tend to get their kinetic and violence situations resolved fairly quickly, and end up going back to a unsteady peace, I would say, or a guarded peace, maybe is the right way to say it, along the border there. So we'll see how it turns out, and we'll keep monitoring that situation. But everybody should be paying attention. It's 2 nuclear states that have long been in conflict with each other.
Wow. Listen to this. This is out of the cabinet meeting today. This is, again, talk about the open press now, the alternative conservative media being allowed in, whereas the last administration was labeling certain people as potential problems. Listen to the Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, today.
Something else we got out of the business of, well, it wasn't widely reported, or maybe it was. We had an office in the Department of State whose job it was to censor Americans. And by the way, I'm not going to say who it is. I'll leave it up to them. There's at least one person at this table today who had a dossier in that building of social media posts to identify them as purveyors of disinformation. We have these dossiers. We are going to be turning those over to these individuals.
We can follow up with the media story.
Well, we are going to turn over these dossiers to the individuals, and they'll decide whether they want to disclose it or not. But just think about the Department of State of the United States had set up an office to monitor the social media posts and commentary of American citizens to identify them as vectors of disinformation, when we know that the best way to combat disinformation is freedom of speech and transparency. And so that's what we're going to be in the business of doing. We're not going to have an...
Wow. There you go. What do you make of that?
Once again, proof that the federal centralized government has too much power and ability to not just oppress Americans, but destroy our liberty. This government was established by us to protect liberty. That is the bottom line, Brandon. It just infuriates me that Rubio can't get a little emotional about it. He needs to get emotional about this. Look, we, the American people who have sacrificed and died, and my family on my father's side have done it since before the American Revolution, starting in July of 1775, is when William Maness Jr. enlisted in the Continental Army. And on my wife's side, William Dooling of what became West Virginia, where he was given land as his pension for being in the Continental Army, sacrificed, and his friends died for this country to establish a government to protect Americans' liberty. There should be no organization within the United States central government or any state government that suppresses the Americans' right to free speech. And that is the kind of activity we need to end, and end it now. And I thank Secretary Rubio for putting that out there in public. I just did a show yesterday with Matt Couch, who's investigated the Seth Rich murder for 9 years now. Seth Rich was the DNC operative that was murdered because people think that he's the one that gave WikiLeaks the DNC emails instead of the Russians from the Russia hoax. We've got to get at that because CISA was created, and these types of organizations were created to prevent us from being able to speak freely about the government of the United States. This must end. Wow.
Wow. Colonel Rob Maness. Logan, grab that clip, send that viral this afternoon. So well said. So well said. If I wasn't afraid of losing you as a broadcaster, I'd be putting you up to run for the U.S. Senate or something again. But you did that once, so your wife will kill me if I try to get you to do it again. Plus, I don't want to lose you as a broadcaster every day. I got to ask you more when we come back about, people wanting to go to war with Iran so urgently. What's he think? Don't go away. Hello, I'm Brannon Howse. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview. All right, welcome back. Glad you're with us, Worldview Radio, our website, worldviewradio.com. Did you see the hats? I don't know if you saw the clips today from the first 100 days of the Trump administration's second term, but they all had hats on the desk, on the cabinet table desk saying Gulf of America. Gulf of America. It's almost like every time they get together, somebody brings in a new hat saying something. Make America great again. Then I think they brought in Trump was right. Now we've got Gulf of America. So it seems like every cabinet meeting they get a new hat. Before we go to striking Iran, I do have one here by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Listen. Now again, I interviewed several times Tara Rodas, a whistleblower inside the Health and Human Services. Remember me interviewing her now for the last few years about hundreds of thousands of missing children and how our government knowingly was sex trafficking and labor trafficking children? Oh, that's the stuff of conspiracy theory, Brannon. Well, listen to the Secretary of HHS, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. today in the cabinet meeting.
we have ended HHS as the role as the vector, the principal vector in this country for child trafficking. And during the Biden administration, HHS became a collaborator in child trafficking and for sex and for slavery. And we have ended that, and we're very aggressively going out and trying to find these children, the 300,000 children that were lost by the Biden administration.
Wow. Colonel, the HHS under the Biden regime was trafficking children, 300,000 children that were lost by the Biden administration, trafficking for sex and for slavery. I mean, did you ever think you'd see a cabinet member sitting with the press and the president telling you that about our own federal government? Colonel?
Tells you how elevated the performance of the top leaders, the political appointed leaders in the United States government has become today, and it's due to Mr. Trump's ability to not only empower his secretaries and let them empower their subordinates. I can't wait to see the entire administration set of political appointees filled out and see what happens, because it's going to be amazing. This is just the tip of the iceberg. And I'm so grateful to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for having the courage to sit there in that cabinet meeting and say those words, because I don't think President Trump knew he was going to say that. And you know what? He's right. I learned a long time ago after I got into this media stuff that, you know, be careful what you call a conspiracy theory, and don't be afraid to talk about issues that are brought up, even issues that you think are kind of wacky, you know, because 99% of the time, what have we learned the last 15 years? They turn out to be accurate and true. And this is one of the most devastating ones. And if you can imagine, Brannon, we have so much more work to do in this area of child trafficking and slavery for sex and slavery and those kind of things, because that's just the federal part of the government. He's not even spoken about the state governments, local governments, and the non-government organizations like Catholic Charities that are getting $500 million a year to traffic human beings. We got a long way to go, but Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is one of the great leaders of this administration of this country, and that's right there proves it.
Amazing. All right, little levity here. I guess Marco Rubio has, like I do, a favorite candy. One of mine is, what do you call them, Logan? Those little brown things, Tootsie Rolls. And I do it in moderation. So much moderation that I had a bag of Tootsie Rolls in my office desk for a year. A year. So, I mean, it's very moderation. But listen to what they were talking about in the cabinet meeting. Here we go.
Everyone around this table at some level, and because of Secretary Kennedy, I'm afraid to eat anything. So in front of him, yeah. He said Tootsie Rolls are okay in moderation. So. But it's a great team.
Tootsie Rolls are okay in moderation. They're okay in moderation. So let's see. Anything else, Logan? All right, a good one of Rubio going after the media. Everybody's using their Sunday language here, I hope. Keep your finger on the button. I haven't heard these. Have you guys screened them? All right, they say they've screened it. Here we go.
Would be fine. Mr. President, can I ask Secretary Rubio, can I ask you a question? You brought up El Salvador in your remarks. Have you been in touch with El Salvador about returning Abrego Garcia? Has a formal request from this administration been made?
Well, I would never tell you that. And you know who else I'll never tell? A judge. Because the conduct of our foreign policy belongs to the President of the United States and the executive branch, not some judge. So we will conduct foreign policy appropriately if we need to, but I'll never discuss it. And no one will ever make us discuss it, because that's how foreign policy works.
Wow. So we're not going to tell the media because we don't trust you, and we're certainly not going to tell a judge. Isn't that interesting? And the left now is acting like Donald Trump is going to start, and I even see some people on the so-called right and the libertarians, some of the libertarians who I interview are going crazy over ICE, or the FBI, I guess, arresting this judge in Milwaukee. They're going crazy and saying this is a precedent, and President Trump is now going to go around arresting judges, and we're headed toward a dictatorship. And now you got the governor of Illinois saying he's calling for disruption, right? So, but here's Marco Rubio saying, I'm not telling you, the media, I don't trust you, and I'm not going to tell a judge. Colonel?
Let me correct you. Marco Rubio is exactly right again on there. I'm very grateful the president has appointed these people to these positions, man. I mean, their performance is just exceptional. Even the ones like Rubio, who I don't agree with politically on a lot of stuff, on everything, But Pritzker, he's called for political violence against half of the country because more than half of the country voted for Donald Trump and voted for these policies. That is sedition. That is seditious behavior from a governor of a state in the United States of America. If Abraham Lincoln were alive today or George Washington were alive today, they would declare an insurrection and send troops into that state, because that's what Pritzker just did. And people better start taking it seriously, Brannon. And these judges, no judge is above the law. What about all this preaching we got when nobody's above the law, when they were putting Donald Trump and his appointees from his last administration, his family, through political lawfare, completely upending the norms in this country? And those norms are the critical norms for keeping the country free and safe and prosperous. These judges that are making these decisions are making decisions about overt Article 2 powers of the President of the United States, enumerated powers, making decisions trying to subvert those powers. And if need be, they should be arrested when they go too far, especially when it's criminal breaking of the law. And there's some criminality and should be some criminality involved in trying to revoke or subvert Article 2 powers of the President of the United States.
So when you said, let me correct you, it's because I used the word, the governor calling for disruption. Is that what you're correcting?
Right.
Because he's really calling for insurrection is what you're saying.
Yes, he's calling for political violence, insurrection, seditious speech. Most speech is protected. I'm all for it. But when you have an executive of a state who is commander-in-chief of his National Guard forces, he's a military commander-in-chief that's calling for it, that's a whole different animal. And George Washington knew it, and so did Abraham Lincoln. And I'm not an Abraham Lincoln fan. I live on the Gulf of America in Mississippi.
Woo! He's on fire today. So tonight I've got Mark Mitchell, the lead pollster of Rasmussen, on my show. Brannon Howse Live, Worldview Tube, 7:30 Central. And he thinks the polling is showing, and with comments like this from the governor, he thinks we're headed to our breakup, that the country is headed for, you can either call it civil war or states seceding, but he doesn't see how Tennessee, Mississippi, Arkansas, Alabama, how these states who have one worldview predominantly, and California, Illinois, and some of these other states, Michigan, how we can stay in a union together when we have no desire to be on the same page with our values, our worldview, our form of government. What do you think?
Yeah, we could be. And quite honestly, the question of whether secession was a right of states that were sovereign nations that entered this original compact called the Constitution, and before that, Articles of Confederation, and that they couldn't be forced by use of violence to stay in the compact. That question's never been fully answered, even though we killed 600,000 plus Americans when you combine both sides in what's the so-called Civil War between the states. And that's unfortunate because that question has not really been fully decided through the courts and should have been at this point. It was before that war that killed so many Americans that really, truly believed that what they were doing was protecting the Constitution of the United States. And that's on both sides of that issue, quite honestly. I have relatives, ancestors that were on both sides of it and understand what they were thinking about. So it's very unfortunate that we've come to this. But when you have governors like Pritzker out there that are stoking that, and they have arms available to them, others will rise out of that quagmire that he's creating, that boiling pot that he's creating, unless it gets nipped in the bud. And Mitchell could be right.
Before we run out of time here, go to the break. We'll let you go so you get ready for your broadcast. People like Mark Levin, Sean Hannity, these guys, they really seem to be rah-rah-rahing for striking Iran. I think it's very, very irresponsible. What are your thoughts?
I think it's extremely irresponsible. I've said on your show before and agreed with Dr. Peter Pry that you've mentioned and had on your show many times before he passed away, that the Iranians likely had at least one nuclear weapon when he was alive. I believe they have somewhere between 5 and 10, and most of those are probably able to be married up to a medium-range ballistic missile, which could easily hit the state of Israel, our closest ally in the region, which we don't have a defense pact with them like we do with NATO countries. But what if they fired it at Turkey, and hit Turkish cities with it? That's a big issue for us when it comes to that kind of thing. But the reason why we probably didn't go to war, even though we put 6 or 7 B-2 bombers on Diego Garcia a few weeks ago, and then Netanyahu came to see the president, and they decided that the president decided the United States wasn't going to go to war with Iran, even though it appeared that the chess pieces were being set. It's likely because we have the intelligence that's still highly classified that shows that they have nuclear weapon capable of.
Well, Colonel, your show is available every day at robmaness.com and, of course, worldviewtube.com, produced out of our control rooms. And we appreciate you always being with us and that you host the show and you come on here. We appreciate you and hope you have a great day there on the Gulf of America.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
robmaness.com, folks. He really does. He lives on the Gulf of America now. robmaness.com, robmaness.com. All right, Aaron will be in studio with me tonight. Aaron, our reporter from Israel, still in the U.S. He'll be in studio with me tonight. And of course, we're going to talk about the fires that are raging in Israel. Appears as though they were started. Who do you think they were started by? Yeah, appears they were started by a Palestinian. I guess that would make him a terrorist, right? And of course, we know that that has been something that has been talked about in Islamic magazines for several years. And I'm pretty convinced that a lot of the fires in the U.S. have had that as their origin as well. Got a phone call last night from Annie Cyrus. She'll be on my broadcast tomorrow night. But she wanted to inform me that David Horowitz passed away. I think it was, if not yesterday, it was the day before, but he passed away. David Horowitz, former Marxist, who became a great patriot fighting Marxism. We'll be right back after this break. We're not changing courses now. We are who we are. We're committed to the truth that we are committed to. Worldview Tube is a broadcast network that I started in 2006, but it's based on my 35 years as an author and speaker and commentator. Worldview Tube is here to defend the truth of a Christian worldview. And we believe we can apply it to all areas of life, like law, science, economics, history, family, social issues, education, religion, major issues.
At worldviewtube.com, we provide news from around the globe that isn't typically covered by mainstream media. Visit worldviewtube.com to watch our experts and analysts discuss all your favorite topics on our 24/7 live stream. Explore our extensive collection of unfiltered and uncensored content from 35 years of production. Go to worldviewtube.com today. Also find us on all of these major platforms and download our Worldview Tube mobile app.
All right, welcome back, Worldview Radio. Our website, worldviewradio.com. So we leave on Friday for the nation's capital, making a couple stops between here and there. You'll have to be surprised, and you will be. And you'll be not only surprised, but you'll be excited about it. You're going to think, that's really cool. So we'll keep some surprises for you. But we are leaving Friday, and we need your prayers for safety and safe travel and good health and timing. We got 8 days. And I said, Logan, Melissa, we're going to be 8 days, and at the end of the 8 days, we're going to say we could use another 8 days. And at the end of that 8 days, you'd say we could use another 8 days, because there's so much in that region of our country to film and to document and to turn into great educational, inspirational, historic, patriotic programming. But also pray for divine appointments. We're praying for that. Divine appointments. We have a few phone calls we've made to some key people that we'd like to interview, and many of you would never guess who some of the people are we would like to interview. I've been trying to nail something down with them. If I told you, you would go, oh, that makes perfect sense. You would want to interview that person. There's two people in particular. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Some of them are like, yeah, let us know when you're on the ground here, and we'll go from there. So we'll see. Let's see what God providentially does. But here's what I want to pray for. That some of these interviews, we can use them to grab the attention of people that maybe wouldn't normally listen to us. I don't know, should we tell the left what it is we're really doing here, folks? Should we tell them what we're really doing? Because it's pretty simple. You know what we're doing? We're just taking what's common to the culture, and we're turning it into a pulpit. All of these things that we talk about day in and day out are one day going to be resolved one way or the other, right? And the grass withers, the flower fades, but the word of God will stand forever. So we can talk about the issues of the day, and we can even have great victories, important victories. But what good does it matter if we have victories and just make America a more family-friendly, patriotic place from which to die and go to eternity in hell? That's not doing them any favors, right? So what we want to do is talk about the issues of the day so we can bring in truth. Truth. Isn't that the deficit that we have today? The great deficit of truth. Comes down to that one word, truth. Jesus, as we all know, said, I am the way, the truth. I'm the only way, the truth, and the life. No one comes unto the Father except through me. The righteous life of Christ imputed or credited to our account when we place our faith and trust in him alone. He who sent me is true. Thy word is true. God's word can't be separated from the Trinity. All three persons of the Trinity, or the person of Jesus Christ. The truth. The Bible says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. Which knowledge? Acquisition of truth. Pontius Pilate, didn't he ask, what is truth? Everything comes down today to a deficit of truth. And what we really want to do is take very interesting historical videos, patriotic videos, great interviews, and use those as a platform to catch the attention of people who say, I've never heard of this worldview radio. I've never heard of this guy, Brannon Howse. Wait a minute. He teaches on the book of Revelation on Sunday night? Now, I don't know a lot about that book, but I think a lot of these things are setting the stage for that, what little I know about Christianity. That's what I want people saying. Let's go watch that. Wait a minute, this guy is a Christian, but he's also a strong conservative? I've been looking for someone to talk to me about truth and spiritual things. That's what we're doing here, folks. We're fishing. Okay? Don't tell the left what it is we're really doing, but this is what we're doing. This is all simply to take what's common to the culture, turn it into the pulpit, and throw out bait as we're fishing. We're fishing for souls. And I cannot tell you the number of people that have emailed, text, handwritten notes, voicemails, who they think they stumbled on the program. And now they're believers. They become strong, committed Christians. Skeptics, critics, now strong believers. Well, they didn't stumble. God providentially orchestrated it. So we believe big time in providence. And providence is something you don't oftentimes see until you look back and you realize, wow, the Lord orchestrated all those things. So here's what I'm going to ask you to pray for. Safety, good health, providential appointments. So that when we look back, maybe we can come back and say to you, let me tell you about some of the things that happen that are beyond our ability or control. God did this. He opened the door for this, for that. And now we're able to use these things as a platform to a lost world, many of them who are seeking truth. That's what it comes down to, right? Joining me now is Tom Littleton, 30piecesofsilver.org, 30piecesofsilver.org. Tom, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, and congratulations on these open doors in D.C. and at the White House. That's a real blessing. Looking forward to it.
Well, we'll see what comes of it, but it's a good start, that's for sure. You got a brand new article. Trinity Forum seeks to justify government USAID funding in Christian ministries. Oh, this is very important because I had to wonder how many so-called Christian ministries are getting government funding, USAID. We know a lot of the media were. I was wondering how do these media outlets stay afloat? Who watches this garbage? Well, they were staying afloat, a lot of them, because the government was paying them as mouthpieces and propaganda. And it did cause me to wonder, are there any of these leftist Marxianity organizations getting government money? What did you find out?
Well, in this case, what we're looking at is a Trinity Forum, which you're very familiar with. They provide a platform for progressive political speeches and panels, basically, that are often mistaken for conservatives. This organization markets itself as a conservative evangelical organization. But what they have here is assembled a panel with a guy who works for Trinity, Tom Walsh, who is the moderator, and he worked for the Gates Foundation.
Oh, boy.
And so,
Bill Gates.
Yeah,
Bill Gates.
Yeah, and right. And so he is bringing in three people, one who works for the Bush Institute, a woman, then another guy who is Council of Foreign Relations human rights advocate, and then the other is the former head or current head, rather, of World Relief and works with National Association of Evangelicals. So what they have done is they've suddenly become disturbed that what the USAID story and these Doge exposés and all the cuts that have come into play with their funding is now in the news cycle. So the first of this month, they jumped in with this little discussion so they could sort of neutralize concerns that they were getting this funding. And of course, they want the funding to be brought back. They're belly aching about all the wonderful humanitarian things that they were doing as a government partner internationally. And also they're justifying, giving some history of the faith-based partnerships and how this has all worked. The woman with the Bush Institute talking about Bush's initial faith-based partnership establishment, and of course they're saying, oh, this stuff dates back to the Marshall Plan when faith-based organizations were helping with the government's rebuild of Western Europe after World War II. So they're acting like this is benign. The World Vision guy actually says, oh, this is nothing to be concerned about. It's actually something beautiful, these partnerships, and it shouldn't be concerning to us at all. So they're making their play that, hey, there's nothing problem here. There's nothing to see here. We haven't compromised our vision. And I sent you links to particular time slots, but those are pretty lengthy. You may not have time to play all of it. But in the end game, they're wanting the church to step in and make up the shortfalls that have been created by these cuts. So if you're ready for that, they're wanting to ramp up your giving about 4 times what it is normally so they can continue this work and not suffer from these budget cuts.
Wow. All right, I'm just queuing up one of them. You say it begins at about the 57-minute mark, it sounds like, one of them, the first one?
Yeah, the first one, they're explaining what the discussion is about, and you don't have to play that whole thing, but it'll give you a little. This is the Gates guy talking.
All right, here we go. Let's play a little of this. Here we go.
In these conversations is provide a hospitable place to engage the big questions of life in the context of faith, and ultimately to come to better know the author of the answers. Turning to today's topic, foreign aid is something that most Americans really don't have a reason to engage with most of the time. Focusing on things where we are is only natural. And it's also the case that the phrase foreign aid is a bit abstract. So this conversation today is a chance to make it more real and to try to bring it home for all of us. The goal today, in my mind, is to expand the knowledge base of all of us around U.S. foreign aid, and to do it through the lens of Christian faith. Whatever your own perspective is, I hope you will find it helpful. If you have questions as we go, please post them in the Q&A box, and we will turn to them in the second half of the hour. American foreign aid has been going on for a long time. You can trace it back to the Marshall Plan and maybe farther. But it has seldom been in the headlines. But now in 2025, completely without warning, it is. Many American Christians are connected with people in developing countries, perhaps through church-to-church relationships or by supporting charities. But through the years, Christians have been deeply involved in U.S. government efforts too, in various ways, to various roles. So this is an opportunity today to learn from just 3 of them. You can find their bio.
Okay, so there you go. So once again, they're going to pitch this as, this is a great way for Christians to be salt and light and get out the gospel. Okay.
And it's nothing new. It's great. Nothing new. No problems.
Yeah, because the government's going to give you tons of money to turn around and preach the gospel, pass out Bibles, and give gospel-centered tracts. Wrong-o. That is a violation of the separation of church and state as defined by the courts today, unfortunately, by the ACLU. And I think the Department of Justice upholds this and says, look, guys, you can take all the government money you want, but you cannot proselytize, correct?
Correct. That's exactly correct. That was explicit in the clarifications that the Obama administration put out after they had been dumping this money into ministries. Plus, there's another problem here. The Trinity Forum is funded by the Democracy Fund, which is the eBay founder, a progressive Muslim Democrat, and they also took Soros money related to the National Immigration Forum, and they were the big host for the Evangelical Immigration Roundtable to come back repeatedly, Michael Ware, Russell Moore, others, to come back and push for immigration reform. So Trinity Forum has its own agenda. They have this Gates guy in there, Bill Gates and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation guy in there pushing this stuff. And then they're going to bring in this discussion with at least one of the biggest recipients of this immigration money. They're also talking about the battle against AIDS, and they go back to Bush's work in Africa, if you remember. And all this stuff really comes down to these people and organizations being generous with your money.
Oh, yeah.
Your money.
Exactly.
And you hear the concern in his voice that, oh, this isn't usually in the news, and poor stupid us, he needs to walk us through it, why it's suddenly in the news, but we shouldn't be concerned about it.
Yeah, exactly. Logan, do we have Usama? You couldn't get a hold of Usama. That's troubling. All right, 30piecesofsilver.org, 30piecesofsilver.org. Hold right there. I get a closing comment from Tom. Phone line's open. Are the phone lines working? I think they are. 1-800-347-9829, 1-800-347-9829. Your thoughts, your comments, your questions. I also like to know this. How concerned are you about these neocons pushing to strike Iran so aggressively? Does that concern you? 1-800-347-9829. Phone line's open. Hello, I'm Brannon Howse. Melissa and I have been taking Bella Grace, this powerful elixir, since last fall, 2023. The results have been amazing. My hands would crack and bleed, deep cuts and cracks every winter for years. No matter what we did, we couldn't get them to stop cracking and bleeding. This year, I took Bella Grace, no cracking, no bleeding. My acid reflux, gone. Haven't had to take a Pepsid. My hair growth, the last 2 times I had my hair cut, the lady had to use thinning shears on my hair. That's amazing. We've also received incredible feedback from you, our listening audience, and the impact it's had for you. This is loaded with astaxanthin. That's a powerful antioxidant. Collagen, but top grade collagen. Studies show 95% of it is being absorbed in the body because of the way they develop it. Then we have something called cat's claw. That's an anti-inflammatory from a vine in Peru. It's the bark, and it's an anti-inflammatory. There are about 80 clinical trials on Bella Grace. Please get a subscription now and save. MelissaHousebg.com. All right, 1-800-347-9829. Your thoughts, your comments, your questions. Before you go to the phone lines. So, Tom, the bottom line is this is really the peace plan of Rick Warren, is it not? We're going to get all the faith groups together to solve all the social problems. It's not about spiritual, it's about material, right? That's what they're doing.
Right. And as you recall, Rwanda was the first purpose-driven nation to implement the peace plan and contact Rick Warren to bring it there on a national level, especially related to health and human services funding and UN health funding. But we know that abortion's always a big agenda there. But never mind that, we can form these partnerships. But one of these speakers, the guy with World Relief, actually worked in Rwanda with that plan according to the timeline. And so that was Rwanda becoming the first purpose-driven nation following the peace plan. So this has been in play for quite a while. 2005, you and I discovered that Rick Warren goes back actually working with the Bill Gates Foundation to implement and introduce the peace plan back then. So these guys have had unfettered access to all this federal funding all these years, and suddenly, because Trump has stepped in and Doge has been looking at the numbers and where this money went, these guys are stepping up to say, hey, this is a wonderful thing. Don't be worried about it. And besides, you need to step in and help us make up the shortfalls by increasing your giving by about 75%.
30piecesofsilver.org for the full picture. 30piecesofsilver.org. As always, a great work. Thank you so much, Tom. Appreciate your being with us.
Thank you, Brandon.
Tom Littleton checking in, 30piecesofsilver.org. Zudi Jasser. Let's go real quick while you get him queued up. Joe in Wisconsin, line 2. Hi, Joe.
Say again.
Hi, Joe. Thanks for calling in, Joe.
Hey, I'm just kind of wondering, does the president really know everything that he needs to know about this thing with the judges and all the crap that the judges are pulling? You know, I mean, you would
we
think
can't say that word. We can't say that word. But does he know everything he should know? No, he probably doesn't know all he should know. That's the biggest challenge presidents have, particularly if they, like President Trump, have come from a business world. And of course, he's really gotten up to speed, hasn't he? But no, he doesn't know all there is to know. But particularly, what do you think it is he needs to know that he doesn't know?
Yeah, right. Well, I would think, that he could just fire the judges.
Well, that's again,
keep it really low drama and just let's get this show on the road, before we have a war coming up in our country.
And I think he has something planned. He in fact, here's a quick comment about it from President Trump. So your call is perfect. Listen to this.
You mentioned this last night in your speech in Macomb, that we're facing an unprecedented situation where there's a lot of abuses of nationwide.
Unprecedented abuses by judges. This is what he's being asked.
Power.
Let's see after the journalist is done asking the question, you'll hear President Trump's answer, hopefully.
Aliens that came in under the previous administration. Have you spoken to your team about ways to mitigate
Okay, he's talking about ways to mitigate what's going on with the judges.
Well, there are ways to mitigate it, and there's some very strong ways. There's one way that's been used by 3 very highly respected presidents, but we hope we don't have to go that route. But there is one way that has been used very successfully by 3 presidents, all highly respected.
Okay, so 3 presidents have used something, and we'll have to see what that is. But the caller is right. There are people on Capitol Hill saying we can go ahead in here and eliminate some of these courts. These courts, some of them do not have to exist. We can just eliminate them and be done with them. So that may be part of it. We'll see what goes on. Great call, Joe. Let's get in real quick. Andreas, line 4. Andreas, go right ahead.
Yes, thank you for taking my call. No, I watched the program last night in the interviews, and very happy to have a president that has control, and it makes us feel a whole lot safer. Even those that don't like him, I'm sure they deep inside they like the fact that there's control and there's somebody actually in the White House, being transparent with everything, and very happy. Tomorrow's a National Day of Prayer. Remind everybody to continue to keep him, his family, the whole cabinet, keep everybody in prayer. And just want to mention that. Thank you.
Excellent call. Great call. By the way, before I go to Usama, we did grab him. Last night, I had the chance to interview former Congressman Kurt Weldon for 1 hour and 10 minutes. He told stories he said he has never told before, revealing things about 9/11, revealing things about Building 7, revealing things about how Washington works, and being called up to the Oval Office aboard Air Force One. And I asked him, was President Bush in charge of his presidency? Was he in charge in the White House? The answer, he said, is no. And he will tell you who was running the show, a collection of them, because this same problem is going on today. He'll also tell you about the former head of the KGB, which became the FSB, coming to Washington, D.C. to meet with him. The former head of the KGB, wanting the Bush administration and Putin wanted to cut a deal and become a more friendly relationship including denying selling any weapons to any country that we said, no, don't sell them to them. They were willing to do this. But this was pushed off by the war hawks, if you will, the neocons around Bush, which have us now where we're at. Hour and 10 minutes. It's now on demand. Congressman Kurt Weldon on demand at worldviewtube.com. Let's go real quick to Usama Dakdock. Usama, we got 60 seconds because we tried reaching you, but we couldn't, but we'll get you for a longer segment. Tell me real quick, Mark Levin is out there calling for striking Iran, which I think is very irresponsible right now. But he's also doing interviews again and again with Zuhdi Jasser, who thinks he can reform Islam. That's like saying you can reform Satanism. Doesn't this prove that at the end of the day, Mark Levin's a useful idiot for the neocons, the deep state?
Sadly, when it comes to Islam, I don't think he have a clue or no jack about Islam. First of all, Zuhdi Jasser is a man who claimed to be a moderate Muslim. There is no moderate Muslim because there is no moderate Islam. If you listen to Zuhdi Jasser all his life for the last 20 years since the first time I met with him, he never used a verse from the Quran. He never used one of the saying of Muhammad in the Hadith. And he's the one who invented the word Islamist. You cannot reform ideology. You can reform, like when we talk about Christianity reformation, we reform the Catholic Church to bring it back to the Bible. But how can you reform Islam? By ignoring the word of Allah? By ignoring the saying of Muhammad in the Hadith? You cannot. This is just a dream and in a thin air, will never happen.
And so, shocker that Mark Levin is pushing out this false information about Islam, a moderate Islam, and also is beside himself on the need to strike Iran so they don't get a bomb, when we have known from former CIA analysts and others for a long time, they have a nuclear weapon. They've had one from a while. They clearly could have got one from Pakistan and or North Korea. They've got one, which again, we need to cover this more. Keep your eye on Mark Levin, folks. He's a dangerous guy at many levels. Stay tuned for Crosstalk. Take care. Let's go back to Usama. Usama, these guys in many ways are more dangerous than the left. I think a guy like Mark Levin is more dangerous than many on the left. He also is calling for a constitutional convention. I mean, can we just go down the checklist of all the destructive things that Mark Levin's calling for and people lap it up like this is conservatism? No, this is deep state propaganda, misinformation, military-industrial complex, interfaith dialogue, Muslim Brotherhood talking points. Mark Levin, as a Jewish man, should be ashamed of himself.
Well, he is not actually a true Jew, and I'll tell you why. A good, 10 years ago, he was filling in for Sean Hannity. And in that 1 year specifically, I spoke on Sean Hannity's show as a caller a good 10, 11 times. But he was filling in for him, and that was the last time I called Sean Hannity's show. As a matter of fact, it was another deal where they call me and I pretend that I'm calling them. But that's okay. And we're talking about jihad.
Just so you don't confuse the audience. I understand his third hour on radio is taped. They have a list of people they call who act like they're callers. You wait in line to ask a question, but the whole show is canned and taped for his third hour as though it's live so he can leave and go to the studio. That's what I've been told. So I think that's what you're referring to.
Absolutely. That's what it is. But anyway, so when I talk to Mark here and we talk about the killing in Islam, and he said, well, it's the same thing in the Bible. You know how he talked. I said, no, it's not the same thing. He said, no, it is. I said, will you give me time to explain to you that the killing of the Bible is completely different than the killing in Islam. And he hang up on me by telling me no. That's it.
Did he say, get off my show, you dope, and hang up? Because that's what he's notorious for saying. Get off my show, you dope.
That's like how he did it with me. And brother, I wrote my book, Jihad, Volume 2, Unholy War in Islam, just to respond to him, where I showed him the holy war in the Bible, which is the volume 1, because I want to show my audience that Mark does not know jack about his own Old Testament, nor the killing of the Old Testament, because it is a justifiable killing. Why? Because God waited 430 years for the Amorites and the Hittite and the Jebusite and Hittite and all these type people to repent and come back to him. So it is different than in Islam, where Allah gives the order to Muhammad and the Muslim believers to kill Christians because they trust in Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. You cannot tell me for a cop to shoot a criminal who's about to mow people with his car equal to a cop who's shooting another guy who's driving a car in the right speed limit, respecting all the laws of the land. And that's, by the way, the cover of my book. There's huge differences between killing in the Bible and killing in the Quran. We don't have time for it right now. So from that point, I found that Mark does not know his Torah, does not know anything about the Old Testament. He's a Jew in name only. He's a conservative guy politically. But even as you said right now, he is taking us, or he want to take us to a deeper end. We should not go there. I hope and I pray Trump and his team will never listen to some of his advice, because that will lead us into a chaos worse than the days of Bush in war in Iraq and war in Afghanistan.
Okay, so do you want to come on my show tonight and tell our audience what it will mean if we strike Iran? You said it'll be worse than in the years of Bush. So let's do a segment on my show tonight on that. You want to?
Sure, absolutely.
Were you already dressed like that so nice before I called?
No, I was doing live show. I was when you tried to get hold of me, I was doing live stream.
Okay, I was hoping you didn't stop and go throw on a tie and everything just for me.
No. Well, I'm willing to anytime.
I like your tie. What is it?
For you, Brandon, no problem. God is
Star of Bethlehem.
I still need my my U.
Oh, yes, right. You need your big U.
You promised me you a good, 15 years ago?
Yeah.
I'm waiting.
15 years ago. Logan, make a note to order him a U, please. What does it say on your tie? That's obviously the Star of Bethlehem, right?
Yes. It is. It's actually a Christmas tie, but you know what? It fit with my shirt, and the top part of it is good, and God is good.
Yes,
I celebrate Christmas in July and in May and in April and in February, all year long.
All year long. Well, I won't tell you that I turned on Christmas music last night and this morning.
So it's not just me, it's you too.
I had Christmas music playing this morning. It's some of the most calming music I can find next to the orchestra music I like. I just really like Christmas music. So Zuhdi Jasser, I mean, he was just on Mark Levin, I think April 25th. Talking about this with Mark Levin. Can you believe this guy sits there and one week he's telling you the truth about Muslim Brotherhood? You know, to his credit, Mark Levin's telling you the truth about Muslim Brotherhood. And the next week he's sitting with a guy who I think is basically, helping Muslim Brotherhood by iterating that, we're the moderate Islamists. I mean, Mark Levin, the Bible says a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways.
Sure.
Pray for Mark Levin's salvation. That man is so lost.
But here's the deal. When Mark talks about Muslim Brotherhood, he's not talking about them as true Muslim believers. He talks about them as Zuhdi Jasser would say. These are radicals. These are extremists. These are fundamentalists. And if you look at the intro of my book about jihad in the Bible, I found that amazingly, there's nothing wrong with the word radical from the American dictionary. There's nothing wrong about the word extreme or fundamental. These are words very important. We should stick with them, hold them to them. Because
TheStraightWay.org, TheStraightWay.org. Take
You're watching Worldview 2, built on the 35 years of Worldview books.